I've always believed that the people closest to you are supposed to be the ones who protect you. When the world feels cruel, when everything seems too heavy, family is supposed to be your safe place. But what happens when the very people who are supposed to shield you are the ones who betray you? That question haunted me for years, and it all started with a project. Not just any project, though. This was the kind of project you pour your heart into, the kind that keeps you up at night because you care so much about getting it right. For me, it was more than just homework or an assignment. It was a doorway to my future, an opportunity I had worked toward for months. But in one night, everything I had built crumbled. Not because of a storm, not because of bad luck, but because of someone I trusted, my own sister. She didn't just accidentally ruin it, she destroyed it, intentionally, out of pure jealousy. The worst part? When I went to my parents, expecting them to stand by me, to hold her accountable, to at least acknowledge the pain she caused, they didn't. Instead, they looked at me and said words I'll never forget. Just forgive her, she's your sister. Forgive her for dismantling something I had poured months of my life into, for spitting on all my effort just because she couldn't stand to see me succeed. At that moment, I realized something harsh, something I'd been ignoring my whole life. My parents didn't see me the way I thought they did. They didn't see the late nights, the determination, or the potential. They only saw a child they could silence with guilt. But here's what they didn't know. Their dismissal didn't break me. It lit something inside me. It pushed me into a fire I didn't know I had. And from those ashes, I rebuilt, not just the project, but myself. Years later, when I finally stood at the top, with everything I had worked for shining in front of me, they were the ones standing in the shadows. My sister, who once laughed while watching me cry over my destroyed work, would one day look at me with envy she couldn't hide. And my parents, who once told me to let it go, would one day regret that they hadn't believed in me when it mattered most. This is the story of how betrayal became my fuel, how my sister's jealousy became the very reason I found my strength, and how, in the end, I got everything she tried to take away from me. But to understand how I got there, we need to go back to the beginning, when family dinners still seemed warm, when my sister's smile still felt real, and when I still believed my parents would always have my back. Because that's where it all started. My name is Claire, and for as long as I can remember, my family has revolved around my sister, Emily. She's 2 years older than me, and in our house, that age gap might as well have been a crown on her head. Growing up, it was Emily this, Emily that. Emily got straight A's in elementary school. Emily had a natural talent for soccer. Emily could charm relatives at family gatherings. Don't get me wrong, I loved her in my own way. She was my big sister. I looked up to her. But somewhere along the line, that admiration twisted into something else, something darker, because she didn't want me looking up to her. She wanted me beneath her. Always. It started small. If I drew a picture, she'd draw a better one and hang it on the fridge before mine had a chance. If I got a compliment from a teacher, she'd casually mention how she had already done something harder the year before. And if I ever tried to share my excitement with her about an accomplishment, she'd give me this look. A smirk, half amused, half annoyed, that said, "Don't forget your place." At first, I thought I was imagining it. Siblings fight, right? Rivalries are normal. But as the years passed, I noticed a pattern. Whenever I worked hard for something, whenever I dared to shine even a little, Emily's demeanor shifted. She became colder, sharper, and the people who should have noticed, my parents, never did. Instead, they encouraged the rivalry without realizing it. "Claire, why can't you be more like Emily?" My mom would sigh whenever I came home with a B instead of an A. "Your sister never had trouble focusing on her work." Or my dad would say, "Emily just has that natural drive. Don't be upset if you can't keep up. It's not everyone's gift." Those words stuck. They dug deep into my skin and stayed there, whispering that I was always second best, always chasing a finish line I wasn't meant to reach. And Emily fed off that. By the time we were both in high school, the gap between us had widened. Emily was the golden child. She had trophies on her shelf, friends who admired her, and parents who boasted about her achievements to anyone who would listen. And me, I was the quiet one, the background character in my own family. But here's the thing nobody saw. While Emily thrived in the spotlight, I was working in the shadows. I had discovered my passion for design, specifically architecture. My teachers saw it before my parents did. They noticed the way I could take a simple sketch and turn it into a fully realized model. They praised the patience I had, the detail I poured into my work. For the first time, I had something that felt like mine. It started with small projects. Sketches, models, diagrams, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed for attention. But each one mattered to me. Each one was proof that I wasn't just Emily's little sister. Then came the project. Our school announced a state-level design competition. The challenge was to create a sustainable housing model for low-income families, something that was both affordable and environmentally friendly. It wasn't just a competition, it was an opportunity. Winning could mean scholarships, recognition, maybe even the first step toward the career I dreamed of. I threw myself into it completely. For weeks, my life was that project. I researched endlessly, studying eco-friendly materials, reading about community housing solutions, sketching design after design until my fingers cramped. I saved up to buy materials for the model, cutting, and gluing late into the night. And slowly, something incredible started to take shape. It was more than just a school assignment, it was the best work I had ever done. For once, I could feel the weight of my own potential. But while I was building my future, Emily was watching. At first, she pretended to be supportive. She'd glance at my sketches and say, "Wow, that's interesting." Or she'd wander into my room and ask, "So, what's the point of this again?" With that mocking tone that wasn't quite playful, wasn't quite cruel, just enough to make me doubt myself. And then, the night before the deadline, it happened. I had just finished putting the final touches on my model. It was beautiful, if I do say so myself. A miniature neighborhood, carefully crafted with solar panels, rainwater collection systems, and tiny green spaces that made it feel alive. I set it on my desk, exhausted but proud, ready to turn it in the next morning. I went to bed with a smile on my face. When I woke up, that smile was gone. I found my project on the floor, smashed into pieces. The solar panels I had painstakingly cut and glued were cracked. The houses were crumpled, the green spaces torn apart. Hours, weeks of work destroyed. And standing in the doorway of my room, biting her lip with that same smirk I knew too well, was Emily. "Oh no," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "What happened here?" I felt my chest tighten, my vision blur with rage. "You did this," I whispered. She shrugged. "Maybe you should have taken better care of it. Accidents happen." But it wasn't an accident. I could see it in her eyes, the satisfaction, the relief. She couldn't stand the idea of me succeeding, of me stepping into the light she thought belonged only to her. That morning, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. Not just for the destroyed project, but for the years of being unseen, unheard, unvalued. I thought, surely, my parents will understand. Surely they'll see what she's done. But when I told them, when I begged them to look at the pieces scattered across my desk, they didn't. Instead, my mom sighed and said, "Claire, it's just a project. Don't make this a big deal." And my dad added, "She's your sister. You need to forgive her. You can always try again next year." Try again, after months of work, after watching my dreams literally ripped apart. That's when it hit me. They weren't going to defend me. They weren't going to hold her accountable. I was on my own. And that realization, as painful as it was, would change everything. The hours after my project was destroyed were some of the longest of my life. I sat on the floor of my room, surrounded by broken pieces of cardboard, foam board, and the tiny fragments of my dream. Every little detail I had poured myself into, the miniature solar panels, the carefully measured scale models, was now bent, torn, and useless. Emily had gone off to school that morning, leaving me to clean up the mess as if nothing had happened. My parents didn't even punish her. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't even look at her with disappointment. Instead, they looked at me. "Claire, you need to calm down," my mom said as I sobbed. "I know you worked hard, but accidents happen. It's not worth ruining your relationship with your sister over a school project." Her words stung more than Emily's smirk had. An accident? Emily had stood there smirking at me. She didn't even try to hide what she'd done. "Mom, it wasn't an accident," I cried. "She did this on purpose." But my dad just shook his head, his voice steady, dismissive. "Claire, you're too emotional. You can't prove she did anything. And even if she did, what good will holding a grudge do? Family is more important than competitions." Family. That word hit me differently. If family was so important, why didn't it ever feel like I was part of it? Why was Emily always defended, even when she was cruel? Why was I always the one asked to forgive, to be the bigger person? I wanted to scream, to break something, to make them see. But instead, I just stood there, trembling, tears burning my cheeks. "You don't care," I whispered. "You never care." My mom's face hardened. "Don't you dare talk to us like that. We do everything for you kids. Stop being ungrateful." Ungrateful. That was their favorite word whenever I voiced frustration. It was like they couldn't, or wouldn't, acknowledge that I had a right to be hurt. To them, my pain was always less valid than Emily's comfort. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I stayed in my room staring at the half-cleaned mess. I felt hollow, empty. At school the next day, while everyone else turned in their projects, I had nothing. My teacher, Mrs. Harrison, looked shocked when I told her what happened. "You worked so hard, Claire," she said softly. "I've seen your designs. They were remarkable. What do you mean it was destroyed?" The lump in my throat grew. My sister, she ruined it, and my parents don't care. Mrs. Harrison's eyes softened with sympathy. "That's awful. Claire, I'm so sorry. If you'd like, you can submit your sketches at least. They're strong enough to stand on their own." I did, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the same. The competition was about both concept and execution. Without the model, my chances had crumbled, just like the project Emily smashed. When the results came weeks later, I wasn't surprised. I didn't win, didn't place, didn't even get honorable mention. Emily, of course, basked in the glow of her own success that semester. She had just won a local soccer tournament, and my parents couldn't stop bragging. "Emily's our star," they said at dinner one night, smiling at her with pride. Meanwhile, I sat silently, pushing food around my plate, wondering if anyone even noticed the girls sitting across from their golden child. But here's what my parents and Emily didn't know. While they were ignoring me, something inside me was changing. Losing that competition broke me, but it also lit something in me. For the first time, I wasn't just sad. I was angry. Not the kind of anger that makes you lash out. No, this was quieter, more focused. It whispered, "They will never hand you recognition. You will have to take it." So I started working, harder than ever before. While Emily went to soccer practice, I stayed late in the art room, sketching designs. While my parents praised her trophies, I buried myself in architecture books, learning concepts most high schoolers didn't touch until college. While Emily slept in on weekends, I woke up early to practice model building, making new designs from scraps I could afford. Every insult, every dismissal, every time they called me too sensitive or ungrateful, I poured all of it into my work. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't show Emily. It was mine. But as I improved, Emily noticed anyway. She always noticed. One afternoon, I was working quietly in the kitchen, sketching layouts for a community center design I dreamed up. Emily walked in, glanced at my notebook, and scoffed. "Still wasting your time with that," she said. "You know you'll never be as good as you think. Why even bother?" I clenched my jaw. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. I just kept sketching. That silence seemed to irritate her more than if I'd fought back. "Whatever," she muttered, grabbing a soda from the fridge. "Don't cry to me when you fail again." But what she didn't understand was this. I had already failed. I had already lost. The worst had already happened. And I survived it. Which meant the next time, I'd be ready. By the time junior year ended, I had an entire portfolio of designs, community centers, eco-friendly homes, libraries. My teachers were blown away. Mrs. Harrison even recommended me for a summer architecture workshop at a nearby university. When the acceptance letter came, my heart nearly burst. This was my chance to prove myself. Of course, when I told my parents, their reactions were lukewarm at best. Summer workshop, that sounds expensive, my dad said, frowning. It's a big commitment, my mom added. Are you sure you're ready for something like that? Emily has her soccer camps. We can't spread ourselves too thin. There it was again, Emily first, always. But I didn't back down this time. I already applied, and I got a scholarship. It'll only cost a small supply fee. I can cover it with the money I've saved. They exchanged glances. My mom sighed. Fine, if it means that much to you. That was the extent of their support. No excitement, no pride, just reluctant permission. But it was enough. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for them to cheer me on. I was learning how to cheer for myself. The summer workshop was everything I had dreamed of, and more. Walking into the university's design lab for the first time, I felt like I had stepped into another world. The room buzzed with energy. Tables were scattered with drafting tools, architectural models, and laptops displaying complex 3D renders. For once, I wasn't the overdramatic younger sister. I was the kid dismissed at home. Here, I was just Claire, a young designer surrounded by people who shared my passion. The professors treated us like equals, not kids. They encouraged us to experiment, to make mistakes, to dream big. I thrived in that environment. I stayed late in the lab almost every day, tinkering, asking questions, pushing myself. And something incredible happened. I wasn't just keeping up with the other students. I was excelling. One of the professors, Dr. Klein, pulled me aside halfway through the program. Claire, your designs show a natural instinct, he said, pointing at my sketch of an eco-friendly neighborhood layout. This is the kind of thinking architects spend years developing. Don't stop. You have something special. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not compared, not overshadowed, seen. But even as I thrived in that new space, home was a different story. Emily hated the workshop from the moment she heard about it. Oh, so now you're some genius, she sneered one night when I came home late, exhausted but glowing with excitement. What, you think building little toy houses means you're better than me? I didn't answer. I didn't want to fight. But she didn't stop. She never stopped. By midsummer, she started snooping in my room again. I'd find my sketches misplaced, my notebooks slightly bent, my drafting pens missing. Once, I even caught her flipping through my portfolio when she thought I wasn't home. Emily, stop touching my stuff, I snapped, grabbing it back. She rolled her eyes. Relax, who cares? It's not like any of this matters. You'll quit eventually, just like you always do. Her words were meant to sting, and for a second they did. But then I remembered Dr. Klein's voice in my head. You have something special. That kept me going. At the end of the workshop, we had to present our final projects to a panel of professors and visiting architects. I poured everything into mine, a sustainable community center with open green spaces and affordable housing designs. When I stood at the podium, heart pounding, I expected to stumble, but the words flowed. Every late night, every tear shed over my ruined project, every moment my parents dismissed me, it all built up to that day. The panel applauded. A few even came up afterward to compliment me personally. Claire, you're going places, one said. I wanted to cry. It was the validation. I had begged my family for all my life. When I got home and told my parents about the praise, though, their reaction was the same as always. That's nice, Mom said flatly, scrolling on her phone. Dad nodded absent-mindedly. But don't let it distract you from your regular schoolwork. And Emily, she laughed, actually laughed. Oh my God, Claire, you sound like you won the Nobel Prize or something. It was just a dumb summer camp. I clenched my fists, so hard my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to scream. You weren't there. You didn't see what I did. You didn't hear them say I have potential. But I didn't. Because I was beginning to realize something. They wanted me to doubt myself. They thrived on keeping me small. And I was done letting them. So I doubled down. Back at school, I loaded my schedule with advanced art and design classes. I joined the STEM club. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping younger kids learn basic drafting and model building. It made me feel useful, like my skills mattered to someone, even if my family didn't care. The more I poured into my work, the more Emily seemed to unravel. She grew colder, sharper. If she saw me working, she'd scoff. If she overheard teachers praising me at conferences, she'd sulk afterward. And then came the breaking point. One evening, I was in the living room working on a new design, an urban rooftop garden system. Emily stormed in after soccer practice, sweaty and annoyed. "Can you not spread your crap all over the table?" she snapped. "Some of us actually use this space." I glanced up. "I'll be done in a bit." She marched over, grabbed my sketchpad, and yanked it off the table. "Emily, give it back." I lunged for it, panic rising. But she just flipped through the pages, smirking. "Wow, this is what you waste your time on. Pathetic." Then, before I could stop her, she tore a page straight down the middle. Something inside me snapped. "What is wrong with you?" I shouted, grabbing the pad back, my hands shaking. "Claire, stop being so dramatic," she said coolly, dropping the ripped paper onto the floor. "It's not like this garbage is going to change the world." Tears blurred my vision, not just because she ruined something I worked on, but because in that moment, I realized the truth. Emily wasn't just careless, she was threatened. And my parents. When they came in after hearing the yelling, they didn't scold her. Instead, my mom crossed her arms and said, "Claire, you need to stop provoking your sister. You know how competitive she gets. You two should be supporting each other." Supporting each other. The words felt like acid. Emily destroys my work. Emily mocks me. Emily ruins everything. And I'm the one who needs to support her. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart heavy with rage and clarity. If I wanted to build a future, if I wanted to prove my worth, I couldn't wait for my family to back me. I had to back myself. So I made a decision. I was going to apply for early admission to architecture programs. I wasn't just going to dream about getting out, I was going to make it happen. The decision to apply early to architecture programs felt like a lifeline. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to what my sister or my parents did. I was taking control. I was building my own way forward. I spent hours in the school library researching universities, flipping through program brochures, reading testimonials from students who had once been in my shoes, dreaming of becoming architects, designers, or urban planners. And the more I read, the more determined I became. One program stood out in particular, Eastbrook University. Their architecture program wasn't just prestigious, it was groundbreaking. They were known for sustainable design and had partnerships with top firms. It was everything I wanted. But when I casually mentioned it at dinner one night, my mom frowned. "Eastbrook, isn't that a little ambitious, Claire?" she said, spooning potatoes onto Emily's plate. "Maybe you should start smaller, a state school perhaps." Emily smirked across the table. "Yeah, Claire, don't set yourself up for disappointment." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. There it was again, that same message, packaged neatly in a family dinner conversation. Don't aim too high, don't believe in yourself, don't expect more. But instead of shrinking, I forced a smile. "Maybe, but it doesn't hurt to try." Emily rolled her eyes. "Whatever, just don't cry when you get rejected." That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m. working on my application essay. Every line was a piece of my soul, my story of being underestimated, my passion for sustainable design, my belief that architecture wasn't just about buildings, but about creating spaces where people could truly thrive. I poured every frustration, every ounce of determination into those pages. By the time I was done, I wasn't just applying to Eastbrook, I was daring them to see me. But Emily wasn't about to let me chase that dream without a fight. One Saturday morning, I woke up to find my laptop open on my desk. I never left it that way. My stomach dropped. When I checked, sure enough, my draft essay had been tampered with. Paragraphs deleted, sentences scrambled, random words inserted to make it look sloppy and incoherent. My chest tightened. Emily. I stormed into her room. Did you mess with my essay? She didn't even look up from painting her nails. What essay? Don't play dumb with me. You touched my laptop. She smirked. Maybe if you weren't so paranoid, you'd actually get something done. Stop blaming me for your failures. I wanted to scream. Instead, I ran back to my room and locked the door. Thank God for cloud backups. My original essay was safe, but the message was clear. Emily wasn't just mocking me anymore. She was actively trying to sabotage me. And the worst part, my parents didn't care. When I told them, hoping they'd finally take it seriously, my mom sighed. Claire, your sister wouldn't do that. Why would she? You're imagining things. Dad added, you two need to stop bickering. Family should stick together, apologize to each other and move on. Apologize. I was the one whose work was being destroyed. I was the one fighting to be taken seriously. But in their eyes, Emily could do no wrong. That night, I cried quietly into my pillow, not just from anger, but from the crushing loneliness of realizing my own parents would never defend me. So I turned that pain into fuel. I became even more meticulous. Passwords on everything, backups on multiple drives, drafts printed and hidden away. If Emily wanted to play games, fine, but she wasn't going to stop me. The weeks that followed were a blur of stress, late nights, and endless applications. But somehow I managed. I hit submit on my Eastbrook application, along with a few safety schools, my hands trembling with both fear and excitement. And then the waiting began. Emily seemed to sense the anticipation gnawing at me. She'd drop little comments like, "Any rejection letters yet?" Or, "Don't get your hopes up, Claire." It was like she thrived on the idea of me failing. But then came the day that changed everything. I walked in from school to find a large envelope sitting on the kitchen counter with my name on it. My heart nearly stopped. Eastbrook. Hands shaking, I tore it open. Dear Claire. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Congratulations. We are thrilled to inform you. I screamed, actually screamed. I got in. I yelled, spinning around the kitchen, clutching the letter like it was gold. For the first time, victory was mine. Emily stomped in from the living room, frowning. What's with the noise? I waved the letter in her face. I got into Eastbrook. Her expression faltered just for a second. Shock, jealousy, maybe even fear. But then she sneered. Wow, guess they'll let anyone in these days. I laughed through my tears. Say whatever you want, Emily, I did it. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally be proud. But when I showed them, their reactions were underwhelming at best. Mom frowned. Eastbrook is expensive. How are you planning to pay for it? Dad nodded. And it's far. Do you really think you're ready to live on your own? Their words were like a cold slap. But I refused to let them dull my shine. Yes, I said firmly. I'll figure it out, I'm going. For once, I believed in myself enough that their doubts didn't matter. But Emily wasn't done. Not even close. If anything, my acceptance lit a fire in her. She became meaner, more unpredictable. One night, I caught her rifling through my backpack. Are you serious? I snapped, yanking it away. She crossed her arms. What are you hiding, Claire? Afraid I'll find proof you cheated your way in. I was speechless. She wasn't just trying to tear me down anymore. She was rewriting the narrative, painting me as the villain. And when I told my parents, they looked at me like I was the problem. Claire, my mom said, exasperated, stop accusing your sister. She wouldn't risk her future like that. I laughed bitterly. Her future, what about mine? But they didn't answer. That night, lying awake in my bed, one thought consumed me. If Emily was willing to go this far before I even left for college, what was she going to do next? The acceptance letter should have been the beginning of peace. The victory moment where all my sleepless nights, my endless sketches, My tears soaked into paper finally meant something. But instead, it felt like gasoline on Emily's fire. In the weeks after I got in, her attitude shifted from snide comments to outright hostility. She slammed doors louder when I was studying. She accidentally spilled water near my drafting table. She even started telling people at school that I'd only been accepted because of diversity quotas, as if my hard work didn't matter. It was exhausting. But nothing prepared me for the night. She crossed the line completely. It was a Tuesday. I'd been up late working on a final portfolio piece for Eastbrook, a physical model of a sustainable community layout. It wasn't required, but I wanted to send it in as an extra supplement, something to stand out. I had spent weeks on it. Every tiny building carefully cut, every rooftop garden hand-painted, every little pathway glued down with precision. It wasn't just a model, it was my heart in miniature form. I left it on my desk to dry overnight. The next morning, I walked into my room and froze. The model was destroyed. Pieces of cardboard were crushed, tiny figures snapped in half, green rooftops smeared with something sticky. It looked like someone had stomped on it deliberately. I couldn't breathe. My knees gave out and I collapsed onto the floor, staring at the wreckage. "No," my voice cracked. "No, no, no." My parents rushed in after hearing me cry. But before I could even explain, Emily appeared behind them, her face unreadable. "What happened?" Mom asked, looking at the mess. I turned on Emily, shaking with rage. "You did this." Her eyes widened in mock innocence. "Me? Why would I?" "Because you've been jealous since the moment I got in. Because you can't stand me succeeding." Mom frowned. "Claire, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "Proof?" The word cut like a knife. I didn't have a camera in my room. I didn't have a witness. All I had was months, years of her cruelty. But in my parents' eyes, that wasn't enough. Dad sighed. "Claire, I think you're overreacting. Models are fragile. Maybe it just fell overnight." I stared at him, stunned. "Are you serious? You think this just collapsed on its own?" Emily crossed her arms. "Maybe you shouldn't leave important things lying around if they matter so much. But sure, blame me as always." Her smirk, God, that smirk. It said everything. She knew she did it, and she knew they'd never hold her accountable. I snapped. "You're pathetic, Emily," I spat, my voice shaking. "You can't create, so you destroy. You can't build your own future, so you try to ruin mine. And you know what? It's not going to work." Her smirk faltered for the first time. Mom gasped. "Claire, apologize to your sister right now." I laughed bitterly through my tears. "Apologize? She destroyed my work, and you want me to apologize?" Dad rubbed his temples. "This fighting is tearing the family apart. Just let it go, Claire. You'll have other projects." Other projects? As if the hours I'd spent didn't matter. As if my dreams didn't matter. Something inside me hardened in that moment. I realized no amount of success, no amount of begging, no amount of tears would ever change how they saw me. To them, Emily would always be the golden child, and I would always be the disposable one. So I made a vow right then and there. I would stop looking for their approval. I would stop trying to earn love they weren't capable of giving. I would build my future without them. And someday, they would regret it. The next few months were a blur. I rebuilt parts of my model, submitted my portfolio, and finalized my plans for Eastbrook. Every day felt like walking on eggshells at home, but my determination only grew stronger. When move-in day finally came, Emily scoffed as I carried boxes to the car. "Enjoy your little fantasy world, Claire. Don't cry when reality hits you." I didn't even answer her. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I knew the truth. I was leaving, and she was staying right where she was, bitter, jealous, and small. College was everything I dreamed of and more. Professors encouraged me. Classmates inspired me. I spent long nights in the studio, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. For once, I was surrounded by people who saw me for who I was, not who my family decided I was. And the best part, I thrived. Scholarships, internships, recognition from professors. Slowly but surely, I was building the life Emily tried so hard to destroy. My parents barely called. Emily almost never texted. And honestly, I didn't miss them. Because I finally understood something vital. Family isn't just blood. Family is who stands by you. Family is who celebrates your victories, not who tries to tear them down. Years later, when I presented my first professional project at a major design expo, I spotted them in the audience. Mom, Dad, even Emily. I hadn't invited them, but they came. Afterward, Mom hugged me, tears in her eyes. "Claire, we're so proud of you." I smiled politely, but inside I knew the truth. They weren't proud of me when I was a teenager crying over a destroyed model. They weren't proud of me when I begged for them to see me. They were only proud now that the world validated me. And that's when I realized I didn't need their pride anymore. Because I had mine.